Hello, good day. I'm Chad Price with Carolina Green Corp. We're an athletic field construction company based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. We do field construction and renovation and also athletic field maintenance. I'm here to talk to you today about some of the challenges you may have in trying to play through a pandemic. What I mean by that, especially if you're in North Carolina and Virginia, many of our high school sports, in fact, all of our high school sports, have pushed their fall seasons into the winter and spring of 2021. We're not playing football, soccer, lacrosse, any of these fall sports until 2021. Quite a challenge both for the coaches, administrators, but also a challenge for anyone taking care of the athletic fields and having to provide safe, quality athletic fields. There are some advantages and disadvantages, and I want to talk about three things. One, what can you do now to help you get through the 21 season? And then what can we do during the season when we have all this heavy crushing wear, play, and practice? And then what can we do after this season to try to help these fields recover and bounce back so that we can be ready for the fall of 21? So here we go. Weird situation in 2020. We started out with, ready to play ball in January and February, and then everything gets canceled. And here we are still in a situation where we're not quite sure week to week what's going to happen. But many of you have fields that are possibly the best they've ever been because you didn't have all that spring and summer wear. However, some of you may have fields that basically got neglected. Everybody walked away and, you're trying to figure out how you can get this field back in shape. I would first look at the basics. What can you do on the very basic level with the tools and equipment and time and finances that you have? The primary thing would be mowing. Get your mowing height right. Make sure that you have good sharp blades or reels or whatever equipment you're mowing your fields with. Actually, the mower at times can be a very good form of weed control. If you can mow your weeds down now while they're trying to produce seed, then you will eliminate a lot of your weed pressure come next year. For instance, crabgrass and goosegrass. Some of that have already produced seed, but it's still trying to do that. If you can keep the mower out there and be diligent in your mowing right now, even for the next month, you can eliminate a lot of your weed pressure for next year. Also, having that field groomed and trained at a good playing height will benefit you so you don't scalp that field late in the game as winter approaches and create some additional stress and open up that canopy for more light and more weeds to germinate when the grass goes dormant. I guess I should qualify, most of the fields that we deal with are Bermuda grass, and therefore that tends to be where our focus is on management and our recommendations. But some of these things apply as well to the fields that have cool season grass, fescue and bluegrass and such. So, using a mower, your fertility can be adjusted right now. Usually as we're going into fall and winter, we'll fertilize Bermuda grass with a higher potassium fertilizer, lower nitrogen fertilizer. We're really not looking for a lot of top growth, but we're looking for root development as we still have warm enough temperatures before things totally go dormant. You probably got another 6 to 8 weeks of good weather where the grass will still be growing. The roots will grow longer than the shoots will, so keep that in mind. A high potassium fertilizer, one that we use a lot of, is a 16-10-30 analysis. So our potassium is twice as much as our nitrogen in that ratio there of elements. So something with high potassium is good. You can do a soil test to see if you need to make any lime treatments to adjust your pH. Those are always good things to do every year. But especially in this year, maybe you have a little more downtime to do some of these things. So do a soil test, get that out quickly. Look at a high potassium fertilization as you go into winter and into fall. Another thing would be rolling or leveling or top dressing your field. It's a good thing to try to minimize any areas at all that hold water may trap water and not let the field drain properly. Now, you may not have a lot of time to do anything extensive here, but you can at least go in and try to hand top dress some areas, say a little a bird bath area around a irrigation head or a small worn area, say in a soccer goal. It's possible to go in there and add 1/8 of an inch of sand or some type of top dressing material and let the Bermuda grass grow through it while it still is actively growing. And you can do this every week or every other week, maybe, as long as you don't totally cover up the grass. You want to broom it in and brush it in and make sure you have at least 50% green showing when you top dress. But you can fill in some of these little areas and help them push water away so that you're not holding water there during a heavy or during a wet period. Look at irrigation heads, look at valve boxes, anything that you can help level up and smooth up. Any extra time you may have to put towards taking care of some of these things will help you when it gets into the season time. Errification is something normally we always recommend. However, in this situation, I would caution against aerifying going into the fall. The main reason is if you have a firm field, it will help shed water more easily than a soft field. And so what we would anticipate is that this January and February, when you start play, the grass isn't really growing. It's not soaking up a lot of extra water. And if you have a soft field that takes in water, then it's going to be less stable. Maybe it's going to be a little muddy. Your foot traffic and all that is going to dig in more. It's going to damage the grass a lot more quickly. If you have a firm field, which usually means maybe you have a compacted field, but that will tolerate wear better in this time in the spring. So it sort of goes a little bit against the normal thinking, but firmer in this case is actually better. So you might even be in a position where you roll your field some this fall with a wide roller, something to sort of firm them up so that you can be firm going into winter. Now the backside of that, we'll talk about that later, is that we may need to now re-aerify or aerify these fields when it gets back to summer. But rolling is a good thing. Another big talking point I've had with some of our coaches and ADs at high school level and at college level is overseeding. Things may change with overseeding when you look at your schedule. Fields that now will be played on in January, February, March, I would definitely recommend overseeding those fields with a good perennial ryegrass. Not maybe so much annual ryegrass. It'll be good for you in January, February, March, but it'll get a little leggy and a little long and a little stubbly, if that's even a word, as you get on into the later spring and into early summer. A perennial ryegrass will be a little lower mowing height. It's a better quality of turf, and it also will do well for you in the winter going into spring, but also in the late spring going into summer. And that's the type of season we have here. Just looking at the North Carolina schedule, which I think is very similar to the Virginia schedule, we start on these stadium fields in January with practice, and some of the, like lacrosse and soccer, for instance, starts mid-January. They finish mid-March. But then you have football coming in early February and finishing in early April. And then you have baseball and some other sports coming in April and going on into June. Women's soccer has that schedule. So, we're basically playing on a lot of these fields basically from January to June. I would recommend a little heavier overseeding this year. Doing that doing that in October, and maybe splitting that rye up into 2 applications. Maybe you do it in late September, early October, and then do it again in late October, and you may get better germination out of one or the other just based on the climate and the rain and conditions you have. But maybe splitting that rye up may also save a few bags of rye even to put out again as you get into, say, February, March, April, to get a little more rye coming in there in some of these wear areas. So ryegrass, if you've never done that before, definitely something to consider. If it is part of your program, maybe consider putting out a little heavier for these, especially these stadium fields that are going to get a lot of wear. One exception for that would be baseball. The reason I say that because the baseball schedule in North Carolina doesn't start till April 12th. And so by that time, Bermuda grass is really starting to green up. So guess what? Maybe we forego ryegrass on baseball this year. Something that is probably almost a standard for most programs, having some ryegrass, at least in the infield, if not the whole field. Maybe this year you don't put any ryegrass in your baseball field because you're going to have green Bermuda starting sometime in April. And so if you're not green by the time you start, within a couple of weeks you most likely will be. And you're going to be finishing with the field this very good green Bermuda. And what that's going to do is take away that competition from the ryegrass. Ryegrass is probably the most competitive thing for Bermuda grass that I know of. It's almost as good as a lot of herbicides. Heavy ryegrass will hold your Bermuda back, and if you've overseeded before, you know what I'm talking about. Also, there's a cost involved there, so maybe you're putting the ryegrass on your other fields and not so much on baseball. Softball's a little bit in the middle. They start earlier. They start in March. So maybe you do want ryegrass in softball, but of course softball fields, you're pretty much talking about the outfield anyway in a smaller field. So not a lot of ryegrass involved in that. So we prepared our fields. We have ryegrass where we need it. We've rolled it. We've got our fertility right. Now we look at when the season starts. What can we do there? Well, the main thing that's going to destroy your fields is going to be wet play. So if we've tried to mitigate that as much as possible this late summer and fall, we're gonna really try to be cognizant of when we play on these fields. If the field is too soft, maybe you can continue rolling that field even in the wintertime. We don't want to do anything. We don't want traffic on it when the ground is frozen. That's when not only, it may feel firm because it's frozen, but guess what? We'll do more damage to our Bermuda grass then. But maybe some light top dressing, some hand top dressing in areas to try to tighten them up. Using products like calcined clay sometimes works, or sand would be a cheaper option. But trying to fill in some of these areas as we wear them down, and trying, if possible, to move around as much as you can. Go to alternate areas in the field where you can spread the wear out, and get creative in how you set up your drills and your practices so that you get away from the middle part of the fields or from the high wear areas. That will go a long way in extending the life of your field. If you do get in a situation where you just destroyed your turf, there are some options out there today that maybe weren't available, 10 years ago. One is a product that we actually grow called Game On Grass. It's a very heavy, thick sod that we grow in plastic, and it's made for immediate play. So you can resod an area and play on it immediately if you have to. And I know that's an extreme thing, but at least know it is an option if that's what you're forced to do. Through the middle of a field, say between the hash marks or in a soccer goal mouth or some of those high wear areas like a lacrosse crease, or in front of the pitcher's mound or things like that. You can find more information about that at our website, which I'll show at the end of this. But that is an option if you get into your season and just really blow up your game field or practice field. So what do we look at when we get into after the season? It's June. We're finished with play. What do we do then? One of the first things that I would do is try to get rid of my ryegrass. Do that as soon as you can. And you're going to need to do that chemically with herbicides that will not hurt the Bermuda, but will take out the rye and oftentimes other weeds as well. So you may end up hiring that out with a pesticide applicator, someone who's trained and has the right equipment to do this. Other things that you'll want to do then is aerify, certainly. We've tried to keep these fields firm and solid, Now we need to open them up and let that grass recover. Deep tine aerifying, something maybe going 4 to 6 inches is always a good idea. You can pull plugs or cores or not. There are different methods for doing that. But aerifying, maintaining your fertility through this time, anything you can do to try to promote that grass to come back. There will be some things that occur in the spring and that you may, situations where you may can aerify then as well, as long as your field is stable enough. But in that situation, I would recommend a solid aerification, not a core aerification. Don't pull the soil up on top of the field, but punch holes like pencil size holes. There are a lot of equipment that do that kind of thing. And that will help your field breathe as it starts to come out of the winter into spring and transition back to green. Those things will help. Certainly your fertilizer programs through that period of time are important. But the overall thought being keep the fields firm so that we minimize our damage for that. So now we've gotten through the season, we're into the summer, we've aerified top dress. You may have other things like sodding some places or sprigging some areas that you need to do. If it's a cool season field, similar situation, but that's maybe not the best time to seed, but you can certainly aerify and keep up with our weed control. That's the basics for what it is. I would say if you have any questions, if you have any problems or issues, if you need some help, either from Carolina Green or from anyone that we may know, please call us. Go to our website, get in touch with us. We'll be happy to consult with you at no charge. And if we can't help you, I'm sure we can find someone who can. You can also rely on your universities in the area, the extension services at North Carolina State and Virginia Tech, in those 2 states in specific that have these schedules, or certainly have some really good folks that can help you there. And throughout the country, there's a lot of resources here through the Sports Turf Managers Association, through the Association of Field Builders. There's some really good resources out there. Thank you and good luck. I hope you have a great season, a safe season, and get ready to play ball. Thank you.